What's up internet, welcome to Mo's Garage. In today's video I'm going to show you guys how I installed these Raptor lights on my 2006 Nissan Xterra. Alright, so before I install the Raptor lights on the Xterra, I do want to take a minute to restore this headlight over here. So in one of my previous videos, I restored both of the headlights using a 3M restoration kit. However, this light was a lot more oxidized than the others, so it didn't turn out as well as I wanted it to. So I went online and I repurchased that same kit, and now I'm going to go ahead and give this headlight a second pass. So I'm going to put you guys on a time lapse, and once this is done, we can go ahead and get started on the Raptor light. If you guys do want to see how to do this in more detail, I will have my video up on the top right hand corner. Alright, so I finished restoring the driver's side headlight. However, it looks like there was really no difference made. As you can see right here, it looks clear and it looks pretty nice. However, it's a lot different from this passenger side one. If we take a step back, you can really see that difference. I don't necessarily think that this is something to do with the headlight restoration process. I do think the difference in these two headlights is because this one over here on the passenger side was replaced by the previous owner. Unfortunately, the previous owner was involved in a deer accident, so they replaced the bumper, the headlight, and the passenger side fender. So now I'm kind of wondering if I should just replace the headlight or if I should get a set. I really want to get a black set, but I don't know how that would look with the silver color and this kind of dark gray color here. Let me know down below what you guys think I should do. And with that out of the way, let's go ahead and get started on the Raptor lights. Alright guys, so here we have the Z1 Offroad Nissan Xterra Raptor light kit, and I believe this is specific to the 2005 through 2008 model year. As always, this is not a paid sponsorship or promotion of any kind. I went out and I paid for this with my own money, and the reason why I bought this kit is because it just seems pretty straightforward and simple to install. So this right here is what you get with the kit. It comes in two little boxes. You get a wiring harness, you have this little bag of hardware, you have the 4 lights, and then you have the mounting brackets. Now this kit doesn't come with instructions, but you can find instructions on the Z1 Offroad website. Alright you guys, so the Raptor lights are going to be installed on the grill. So you're going to have one here, 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 and here. So in order to install this, we do need to remove the grill. Up top we have 4 little pins that we need to remove, and we're just going to do that with a flathead screwdriver. Then inside of here, there's going to be a couple tabs that we're going to have to release in order to pull this out. Alright guys, so once you have this guy kind of popped out, you're going to come down in here and you're going to find all the clips that look like these, and you're just going to release them. And once you have them all released, the grill should just pop off the car. Alright guys, so now that we have the grill off, it's time to go ahead and get started on prepping all of the lights. So the first thing you want to do is you want to grab one of these brackets, and you want to make sure that this little hook side is facing forward. Then you're going to take your light and you're going to stick it just like that, so that the pigtail is facing up. Alright, and then once you have that, you're just going to grab one of these screws that came in the hardware kit, and you're going to screw down the light to the bracket. Alright, and then just to kind of tighten these guys up, I'm going to use a 5.5mm socket to just make sure that everything is nice and tight. Alright guys, so we essentially have our first light assembly kind of done. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and stick this guy onto the grill. Alright, so the first light that we're going to do is going to be right here, and you want to install it so that this little clip sits in there like that. Alright guys, and then once you have your light in there, you're going to take some of these thumb screws that came in the hardware kit, and you're just going to screw them onto the screw holes on here. And what it will do, it will provide a clamping force between the bracket and the grill so that it doesn't fall out. Alright, and something I just realized is that if you go ahead and pre-screw them on, it makes it a lot easier to get them in here. Alright, so that's there. Then we can just go ahead and screw these guys all the way down by hand. Alright, and as you can see now, this is nice and secure. And so now we're going to do the same thing for these other ones. One right here, another one here, and then the last one over here. Now that we have all of our lights on here, what we're going to do next is we're going to take our harness and we're going to make it so that the shorter side is on this side and that the longer side is going to be over towards the passenger side. Okay, then from there we're just going to plug into the lights. Okay, so now that I have all the LEDs plugged in, we're going to start to cable manage this harness, and we're going to just kind of stick it in here so that it runs across this channel all the way through to the passenger side. If you can see right here, we have these little loops, and we can use the zip ties that came in with the hardware kit to kind of keep the harness in place. Okay, so this is kind of where I'm at now. As you can see right here, I have the harness just nicely tucked in that ridge down there. And if you look closely, I actually chose not to use any of the zip ties just because I don't want this to be more difficult than it needs to be if I ever need to pull this back out. But the nice thing about this harness is that all of the connections are just right there, easily accessible. So now I'm just going to go ahead and throw this on the car and finish the rest of the wiring. Okay, so the grille's back on the car, and I've snaked the wiring harness through the front right here and around the battery. So now to finish wiring up the Raptor lights, we got to remove these two covers in order to tap into power. Alright guys, so at the end of the wiring harness, what we have is a ring terminal for the ground, which is supposed to go onto this ground right here. And then for the positive side, we have a fuse tap, which it's a little unclear where this goes. The instructions does say that it goes onto the radio fuse, so that way the lights are on whenever the ignition is on. That fuse is supposed to be this guy here, but then the instructions show this 20 amp fuse over here, this yellow one, being tapped into. Unfortunately, I can't tap into either of these two because these are both hot with the ignition off for some reason. So what I'm going to try and do is use the IPDM to power on the Raptor lights. Now I'm not sure how well you guys can see down there, but there is a chart that labels all the fuses and relays on this IPDM. And so there's one, this 10 amp fuse right here, which is called clearance, and I believe this is the one that powers on all of the driving lights. That way the Raptor lights can turn on whenever we turn on the parking lights. Now I upgraded from the white IPDM to the black one because this white one here failed on me, but if yours is still in good condition, I believe that the clearance fuse equivalent on the white one is going to be this 10 amp illumination one, which looks like it's the fourth 10 amp from the bottom. So if we come over here, it's going to be this guy right here. So you should be able to tap into this guy and have the same results, but always double check it with the multimeter. Just have the negative to ground, and then you can have the positive to one of these two pins right here. Be sure to check it with the key on and the key off, and then also with the key on and the lights on, just to make sure that it's the right one. Alright, so I have the IPDM back into place and I have the fuse tap installed. To remove the fuse that was already there, I just used a little tool that Nissan gives you in the fuse box inside of the glove box. Now I should mention that the fuse tap comes with a 10 amp fuse. So if you are planning on tapping something else that has a 20, maybe 15 amp fuse, you will need to remove the 10 amp fuse from the fuse tap and add in the existing fuse that you just removed from the IPDM. Thankfully for me, the fuse that I removed was a 10 amp, so I didn't have to do any adjustments since the fuse tap already had a 10 amp fuse in it. I have the ground installed, and now if we come over here, we can see that the driving lights and the Raptor lights are not on. But if we come over to the driver's side and we flip this guy on just once, we can now see that the Raptor lights are working as well as the driving lights. Looks like I have these corner lights out, so I'm gonna have to replace those when I get the new headlights. Alright guys, so now that we know that everything is working as it should, it's time to just go and cable manage this right here. Now in order to put the cover back over the IPDM, we do need to make some clearance for this cable. So I'm just going to take a Dremel and sand down some of this right here, and then also on the cover. Alright guys, so with the Dremel tool, I basically shaved down this raised portion all the way down to this lip right here. And that's really where this guy sits right here. And then on the top cover, I just kind of went almost all the way up to the top of this little ledge. So now I'm just going to go ahead and take all the excess wire, shove it in here, and then we can put the cover on. All right, so this is kind of what the finished product looks like with this cover on. And then this is what it looks like with both of them on. You can see the cable coming down through here around the battery and up over to the grill. All right, everyone, so the Raptor lights are officially installed, and I think they came out super sweet. So that's going to wrap up this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please consider liking and subscribing, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.